Dear viewers, let me welcome you. Today we will be conducting a very interesting interview with a physicist, Goran Marijanović. Goran Marijanović has dedicated more than 40 years studying theoretical physics and has been specially focused on Tesla studies for more than 20 years. Goran, welcome to the interview.
Thank you for interesting in this area.
Thank you. And today, together with us is Alexei, who will be our co-host. Hello, Alexei.
Yes, hello everyone, and it's a great pleasure, Goran, to talk to you again. And so our first question would be, how did you come to studying Tesla? Well, I mean, his studies and his developments, and what did motivate you?
Well, although I am a telecommunications engineer, I was dealing with theoretical physics for more than 40 years for the love of knowledge. Searching for an answer to the question of what could be common to what is outside of man, that's a micro world, and what is inside us, micro world, I came to the model of quantized energy densities that units the material and spiritual aspects of reality. This model was created by the synthesis of strictly scientific knowledge for the material domain, from the universe to the photon, as spiritual knowledge for the metaphysical aspects of reality. It offers us numerous analogies, symmetry, and harmony between the material and spiritual aspects of reality, of the same reality, and the really beautiful, very simple and logical structure of absolute reality, which provide us with the possibility of better understanding of individual entities and interacting mechanisms in the structure of the absolute, which is made up of numerous manifested and unmanifested materially spiritual phenomena.
Thank you. And we know that you are researching the effects of unconventional forms of energy on biostructures according to Tesla's principles. Please tell us more about this research and what unconventional forms of energy are we talking about?
Yes, that's really very interesting. Thank you for this question, which is very, very important. Because official science has described reality with its theories down to the photon level, just to the photon level, as the last materially ponderable brick of this world. In the quantized energy density model, that phenomenon is at the quantum level k plus a. Next above it is the neutrino as at quantum level k plus 7, then is electron at level k plus 6, the photon at k plus 5, etc., etc. More subtle phenomena below the photons, like quarks, for example, are scientific phenomena of hypothetical nature, therefore non-measurable, non-detectable entities, neither as particles nor as waves. However, according to my model, the first subtle level below the photon, it's a level k plus 9, belongs to Tesla waves, whose quantum carrier is Teslion, as I named that object, or Bhutatmas, as it is named in the Upanishads, which is the most elemental part of the ether medium. The next, even more subtle phenomenon below ether is akasha, the proto-element of ether, the medium of instant communication via the vibrations of that super subtle cosmic fluid that is through phase transmigration of its most elementary particles named Mula Prakriti, pre-cosmic root substance, fundamental or elementary primordial matter. Therefore, akasha, ether, prana, space, vacuum, and similar scientific metaphysical phenomena are not synonyms, as it is often misinterpreted, but completely different entities with special characteristics and properties.
Thank you very much. Can we then discuss what is ether, so there is no misunderstanding, and is there any scientific evidence for its existence?
Yes. Ether is, regarding my investigations, ether is quasi-substrate, a medium through which Tesla waves propagate as longitudinal, expansional, compressional, volumetric vibrations of that perfect fluid with special properties as ether was described by Nikola Tesla. Regarding Nikola Tesla, light cannot be anything else but a longitudinal disturbance in the ether involving alternate compressions and rarefactions. In other words, light can be nothing else than a sound wave in the ether. There are numerous scientific proofs for its existence. Back in 1896, Tesla calculated the theoretical value of the density of the ether fluid of about 1.9 times 10 power minus 27 grams per cubic centimeter. But he also experimentally measured the density of this etheric gaseous medium and got a value of 2 times 10 power minus 26 grams per cubic centimeter. According to the latest scientific measurements done with the Wilkinson microwave anisotropy probe, the value of the critical density of the universe is about 9.5 times 10 minus 30 grams per cubic centimeter, and the estimated value of the density of dark energy is about 7 times 10 power minus 30 grams per cubic centimeter. So we can see that these values are very close to Tesla's theoretical and experimentally determined value of the ether fluid density done before 120 years. In the text, the relative motion of the ether and the ether detected on the website scientificexploration.org can be found a conclusion: ether drift is detectable and has been detected. It is more than interesting that even Michelson himself repeated his measurements 45 years later, and only 3 years before his death, and personally confirmed the existence of the ether. Thank you.
Very interesting.
Yes.
And in your publication, Tesla's magnifying transmitter, a fractal of the quantum hologram reality, you talk about the zero element in the Mendeleev table and that it was ether. Please tell us more about why it's no longer there today, and what do you think does science still recognize the existence of ether or not with so much evidence?
Yes, that's really, really very interesting. The fact is that in the version of the periodic system of elements, which is engraved on the Mendeleev monument, the right column of the noble gases has been moved to the left so that it represents the zero column, and above the first row, where hydrogen, helium, etc. are placed in the classic form of the periodic table, there is a zero row, so that in the zero row and the zero column is placed the zero element, which he called Newtonium, and which is Mendeleev's name for the ether, the most important and fastest element, as he claimed. The key problem here is how, according to Bohr model of the atom, to explain the structure of the elements before hydrogen, because hydrogen is the first, because it has only one proton and one neutron in its nucleus. The next element, helium, has two, the lithium has three, etc., etc. Newtonium and next coronium, which are elements before hydrogen, do not fit into Bohr model, and they were simply expelled from today's version of periodic table. So ether does not exist in modern version of periodic table of elements.
And why do you think that the modern science does not recognize the existence of ether?
Ether is a very problematic medium, and we will speak about that later, because that's a very, very complex problem and very important for the future of science.
Yes, thank you very much, Goran. And I think, yes, there is a lot of things that we will be talking today which do not fit the current model of physics or science in general. And you mentioned this saying by Tesla, who thought that this was extremely important, that light cannot be anything other than longitudinal disturbance in the ether involving alternating compression and rarefaction. In other words, light cannot be anything other than a sound wave in the ether. And we would like to hear your comments on this statement.
Thank you very much for this question, because this is a really, really very important as a previous question. And they are connected. Well, Maxwell's original theory, which was he published in 1864 in a paper entitled Dynamical Theory of the Electromagnetic Field, is based on 20 equations written in the form of quaternions. Quaternions are hypercomplex numbers which, in the simplest terms, represent the sum of scalar and vector part. Under the excuse that quaternions are too complicated mathematical form, after Maxwell's death, Oliver Heaviside and his collaborators, Gibbs, Sommerfeld, etc., simplified the original theory, which was expressed with 20 quaternions, and translated these 20 quaternion equations into only 4, but vectorial equations that are taught today in all universities of the world as Maxwell theory, which is incorrect, because by removing scalar part, the strength of the original version was reduced, and the possibility of describing scalar phenomena was lost, for which the first preliminary research in the original form already show the possibility of scalar waves propagation at an arbitrary speed, including an infinite value. This was a big problem for the theory of relativity emerging in that time, considering its key postulate about the speed of light as the highest possible speed in nature. So they have to simplify that original form, and the solution was found in proclaiming the ether as a non-existent regarding Michelson-Morley experiment, and simplifying the original Maxwell theory so that modern electromagnetism is based on the so-called transversally vectorial electromagnetic waves whose speed is limited to the value of the speed of light in vacuum. But Tesla said, I don't work with Hertzian waves. So he don't work with this transversally vectorial electromagnetic waves, which speed is limited on the velocity of light, but he worked with the waves of different kind. He taught on the scalar waves, which was described in the original Maxwell's theory via that scalar part of quaternion formula.
So can you tell us a little bit more, what are the non-Hertzian waves in its essence?
Non-Hertzian waves are the term that Nikola Tesla used to emphasize that he does not use Hertzian, therefore classical transversal vectorial electromagnetic waves in his work, which was produced for the first time by Henry Hertz and later by Guglielmo Marconi, and such as are used today in all areas of communications. Tesla often emphasized that he used waves of a completely different kind. He used longitudinal scalar waves created by favoring potential and not voltage, which is a great difference. Tesla talks about this on June 5th in his Colorado Springs notes, where he rejects the old version of his high frequency, high voltage transformer from 1891, and then starts to developing magnifying transmitter, which creates electromotive force, which is a pure potential and which is a scalar quantity, unlike the previous version, which is more suitable for creating high voltage or pressure, as Tesla used to say, which is a vector quantity. And in essence, it's a work done. That is why the power of Hertzian waves decrease with the square of distance, while Tesla's non-Hertzian principle makes it possible to transmit energy without loss to an arbitrary distance using longitudinal scalar waves, not vectorial, but scalar waves. Great difference.
Thank you. And we wanted to come back to this. You mentioned that there's quite a lot of confusion between the terms, and what is the connection between dark matter and ether?
Well, in my opinion, the scientific term dark matter is only a replacement for the metaphysical term ether. because both phenomena are described by almost identical physical parameters, as is energy density, for example. But by acknowledging the existence of the ether, science would find itself in a big problem, bearing in mind the assumptions of the original Maxwell theory, considering the theoretical predictions of the possibility of the existence of a scalar waves with unlimited propagation speed. Nevertheless, ether and the analogy with the dark matter was indirectly accepted by the introduction of the latest cosmological theory named quintessence, the fifth essence, the fifth element that we all know is ether. However, for official science, ether still does not exist, but dark matter exists.
Yes, as expected. So, and I would like to read another quote from Tesla and ask for your comment. I was very lucky to discover a new and amazing phenomena, such as a rotating magnetic field, the glow of wireless vacuum tubes, and many other high-frequency effects that amaze the world. But what made the most wonderful impression on me than all other things is the division of stationary waves, which I arrived at in 1899, and which showed that the whole planet on which we live, in spite of its incomprehensible size, can be made to respond in vibration to the lowest whisper of the human voice. So what are the stationary waves? How did Tesla discover them? And what is the relationship of the stationary waves to the planet?
It is really hard to believe, Tesla, that our planet can respond with its vibration to the lowest whisper of the human voice. But I believe him because I believe in every Tesla word. Stationary wave is also known as a standing wave. Is a wave that oscillates but in time, but whose peak amplitude profile does not move in space at all, or they move very, very slowly. These are the waves that are formed as mechanical vibrations in the pipes of the organ, for example, the guitar case, or in the famous Tesla's extra coil, which is the key element of his famous magnifying transmitter. Tesla discovered that stationary waves by observing a storm on the evening of July 3rd and described them in his diary on July 4th as his greatest discovery, because then he realized that the Earth was actually a resonator for disturbances of charges in the air and Earth caused by electrical discharges during the storm. The natural process that creates a wave of this type manifests itself in the form of so-called Schumann waves, or the Schumann resonances, that are a set of spectrum peaks in the extremely low frequency portion of the Earth's electromagnetic field spectrum. Schumann resonances are global electromagnetic resonances generated and exciting by lightning discharges in the cavity formed by the Earth's surface and the ionosphere. Fundamental frequency is 7.83 Hertz, then follow 14.3, 20.8, 27.3, 33.8 hertz, etc., etc. And these values are determined by the dimensions of the planet Earth and the height of the ionospheric layer which forms the cavity, the resonator in which the Schumann spectrum is formed. An analogous principle was copied by Tesla in his emission system widely known as the Wardenclyffe Tower.
Yes, I think there's a lot of things that, as you said, that you believe every word of Tesla's, because sometimes we just don't understand them yet, but the more we progress really in trying to discover things, the more we understand what he was writing. And I would like to ask you, what discoveries of your own have you been able to make thanks to Tesla's work?
Through a long-term study of Tesla's legacy, as well as the knowledge of ancient Vedic knowledge in the last 5 years, I have made a Tesla scalar K9 QED generator, a very, very specific device which uses a unique Tesla coil, which is a lambda quarter helicoidal resonator, as is his extra coil used in Colorado Springs, which generates energy flashes of scalar type, creating very specific volumetric vibrations of the subtle energy field that change the energy structure of the surrounding area of the coil by harmonizing the ambient field, which results in increased conductivity of the substrate for subtle energy flows and vice versa. Details about that can be find on my site, teslascalar.com, and everyone who is interested can find there a lot of explanations and measurements and diagrams, etc.
Thank you. I'm sure it will be very interesting to our viewers to have a look at it. And we know that you are an author of the non-quantized energy model. What kind of model is that?
That model is really, really very, very mighty. All research done in the field of theoretical physics in the past century proved that energy is quantifiable. These facts offer a possibility of energy density quantifying and basically some kind of space quantifying, which is expressed by the existence of stable objects. Observing the entire uniformity of space-time matter from objects whose mass is almost negligible, for example, neutrino, to the whole universe whose mass is estimated at about 10 power 53 kilograms, one can see as the existence of stable objects on an entire scale of values. The quantized energy density model is the result of the synthesis of science and spirituality. That is contemporary scientific and ancient metaphysical, primarily Vedic knowledge. This model combines matter and spirit into one unity of space, time, and energy in which all phenomena, macro, which are galaxies, planets, etc., micro, which are proton, neutrino, etc., hyper part of reality, which is a spirit, soul, intuition, emotion, etc., of reality, all of them can be described by the same physical parameters, frequency, mass, for example, etc., etc. This is of the uttermost importance, since traditional teachings imply energy multilayerity of beings. In terminology of the model, it means that they include multiple quantum levels. Therefore, not only their physical aspect, but also the astral and the few higher spiritual plans, etheric, celestial, causal, etc., etc. Thus, the model offers an image of the form and the content of the multidimensional, materially spiritual structure of absolute reality from the universe as a phenomenon of ultimate materiality to the man where spirit and matter are interwoven, up to the supreme spiritual absolute super consciousness as a phenomenon of the highest level of consciousness.
Yes, thank you. And we would like to now go a bit deeper in this theory, and we would like to ask you about what is the Teslion, and how did you come up with the idea of introducing it? Because for many of our viewers, this will be very interesting, because even this term is not really searchable on the internet. You really need to go deep to find it.
Well, I start very early in the primary school. And I was wondering, because I saw great similarity between what is outside of me and what is inside of me, and try to find what is some kind of law or something which connect that what is outside and what is inside of me. And I get the idea that it could be energy density. So I make some calculation of the density of some objects from the macro space, planet Earth, sun, galaxies, cluster of galaxies, etc., etc., and some entities from the microstructure for proton, electron, neutrino, etc. And what I find that their positions in the space energy diagram, that they are positioned on the one line, which tell me that there is a law which connect micro, micro, and hyper world. And my calculation was finished in 1992-93, but I have one emptiness below the position of electromagnetic waves, because I can see the great correlation between particle and waveform of energy, photon, neutrino, electron, and the different electromagnetic spectrums, radio waves, optical waves, gamma rays, X, etc., etc. So everything was beautiful, but below the radio waves, I have a great emptiness to the Schumann cavity resonances, from few hertz to about 30 hertz. And that was, I cannot find nothing until one moment when I was reading Tesla documents, and in one of his patents, I find the solution. How? Teslion is my name for a stable object at the quantum that was this position which was empty for me maybe 5 years, and the disposition of the quantum level +9. And according to the postulates of the quantized energy density model, represents an elementary quantum of the ether fluid, Tesla's gaseous medium, or a medium for Tesla waves propagation. It is more than interesting that ether fluid, which parameters was calculated and measured by Tesla 120 years ago, is of quantum level K minus 9. So it is obvious that it is Tesla's inverse phenomenon in terms of energy density. Tesla is the stable object K plus 9, resulted from the fact that parameters which characterize that phenomenon are absolutely consistent with Tesla's statements specified in his Canadian patent 142352, named Art of Transmitting Electrical Energy Through the Natural Mediums, where he say, I will see, to give an idea, I would say that the frequency should be smaller than 20,000 per second, though shorter waves might be practicable. The lowest frequency would appear to be 6 per second, in which case there will be but one node at or near the ground plate, and paradoxical as it may seem, the effect will increase with the distance and will be greatest in the region diametrically opposite the transmitter. And we can see frequency of 20 kilohertz and 6 hertz, which he mentioned is his patent, absolutely corresponds to the wavelength area which belongs to the K plus 9 phenomenon in my model. Fact that Nikola Tesla's experimental wavelength range recommendation is absolutely identical to the quantized energy density model predictions for the K plus 9 quantization level was a reason for me to name K plus 9 entity as a Teslion and the corresponding range of the frequency spectrum as a Tesla waves area. Very simple.
Thank you. Thank you. So let's move on a little bit further. And we would like to know, can you tell us something about the works or the development of Thomas Henry Moray? What was the fate of Moray and his works?
Moray is a very, very important person in that area, and his inspiration was Tesla and his ideas about radiant energy, and Tesla has patents about absorptions of radiant energy. Moray improved Tesla's investigations and done his personal investigations. Thomas Henry Moray was an American inventor from Salt Lake City, Utah. And during the 1920s, he worked in the emerging field of radio, but in a very special form for receiving the so-called radiant energy, which he have discovered after hundreds of experiments. Using advanced ideas in a solid-state detector based on his very mysterious Swedish stone, which he remained secret to these days, he developed a power source which he claimed to produce 50,000 watts or 50 kilowatts of a cold form of electricity, not ordinary, but cold form of electricity. By the early 1930s, hundreds and hundreds of people during 3 years attended his demonstrations and witnessed successful experiments. However, he never got a patent for his system of drawing electrical energy out of the atmosphere. He claimed his invention produced electricity with no exterior input of energy. The primary component of the device was some not heated vacuum tube. At that time, most vacuum tubes had heaters built inside, and the patent office refused to grant his patent initially because they claimed that any vacuum tube without a heater would not work. He was never get a patent for his power supply device. In 1949, after a process of 17 years in discussions with the patent office, he received the patent for the electrotherapeutic device. And although radiotherapy is mentioned in that document, no details are given. A possible source of cheap, perhaps even free energy drew attention of government electrical authorities, which insisted to take his invention away from him or destroy it completely. Details are unknown, but original device was destroyed in 1941, which is an event that is part of numerous intrigues that include the attempted murder of Moray. However, although there was a huge number of witnesses to successful demonstrations, Moray's device does not exist, nor is there any precise data about it. But we have a lot of pictures of his demonstrations.
Yes, unfortunately, this kind of thing does not surprise us in the current consumerist format of society we are living, and people who come up with such devices that could provide energy to free energy to everyone, they just suddenly disappear. And it is understandable, sort of, because all our lives currently, they somehow revolve around energy, about getting energy to heat our homes, to cook, to go open places. And we would like to ask you, do you think that the level of development of a civilization depends on what kind of energy it uses?
Development of civilization in the technological sense is certainly correlated with the type of energy it uses. More sophisticated technique and more advanced technology really enable us a more comfortable life, power, and opportunities for those who have it at their disposal. But it does not lead to the development of creativity and increase in the level of awareness. Moving to a higher level of consciousness implies evolution on all levels of being and its more subtle aspects, which in addition to the physical include, as we know, the etheric, astral, intuitive, causal, intellectual, and spiritual planes. So the level of development of civilization does not depend on what kind of energy it uses, but rather the opposite. The degree of development of a civilization determines what kind of energy it will or can use, by my opinion.
Yeah, certainly. And so there have been a lot of documented technologies in the 19th century that haven't been preserved till today, that have been lost or intentionally destroyed. So why do you think that science and society abandoned the developments of that time? Why were the technologies of the past lost?
I am on internet from 1996, I think, when internet came to me, and I saw a lot of such devices. But here I will mention only few. In the first place are Tesla projects, measurements and experiments in the period of his life and work after Colorado Springs, so after 1900, based on ether technologies and related to the world radio station known as the Wardenclyffe Tower. In his Canadian patent, Art of Transmitting Electrical Energy Through the Natural Mediums, Tesla claims that his wave train, which is taken in passing and returning from the region diametrically opposite to the pole over the Earth's surface with the mean velocity of about 1.5 times velocity of the light, which is absolutely impossible regarding modern science. But Tesla measured that. And in the same patent, Tesla said the lowest frequency would appear to be 6 per second, and paradoxical as it may seem, the effect will increase with the distance and will be greatest in the region diametrically opposite to the transmitter. Absolutely controversial. Both claims are extremely controversial for official science. But Tesla Tower was demolished in 1970, and there are no documents about the key elements of that system. Nowhere. Even not in museum here in Belgrade. Second, John Ernst Worrell Keely was an American inventor from Philadelphia who claimed to have discovered a new motive power which was originally described as vaporic of etheric force and later as an unnamed force based on vibratory sympathy, as he said, by which he produced interatomic ether from water and air. There are numerous witnesses to his demonstrations, but he became involved in several lawsuits, and after Keely's death, the laboratory was destroyed and his work was declared as a fraud. Stanley Allen Meyer is creator of the water fuel cell. That is a technical design of a perpetual motion machine for which Meyer claimed that car retrofitted with the device could use water as fuel instead of gasoline. Meyer claims about his water fuel cell and the car that it powered were found to be fake by an Ohio court in 1996. The water fuel cell split water into its component elements, hydrogen and oxygen. The hydrogen gas was then burned to generate energy, a process that reconstituted the water molecules again. According to Mayer, his device required less energy to perform electrolysis than the minimum energy requirement predicted or measured by conventional science. His water fuel cell was later examined by three experts who found that there was nothing revolutionary about the cell at all, and that it was simply using conventional electrolysis. However, Stanley Mayer died suddenly at the age of 48 while dining at a restaurant. Dr. Vasilievich Chernetsky at the Moscow Institute of the National Economy developed the model of plasma generator named self-generating discharge plasmatron, which can convert physical vacuum energy into electricity. Classical physics cannot explain what happens when a plasma discharger placed in the Chernetsky circuit is started. For no apparent reason, the ampermeter pointer shows triple strength of current increase, and energy output is several times above input. The experimentally verified concept of Chernetsky claims to be a theoretical breakthrough in the basic quantum physics idea of the energy structure of the universe. Nevertheless, specially selected experts during 1990s showed that the over-unity effect does not exist. 3 years later, Chernetsky died and his work was suppressed. From the above examples, we can finally guess why were the technologies of the past lost. Common obstacles to changes towards more efficient, sustainable energy sources include competition with existing corporations and their interests, profit, and financial benefit, which have priority over the environment, well-being, and even people's health. The organizational and management systems of civilizations are not up to their task. Absolute control, supervision, and management of scientific research and investment of capital for the development of exclusively profitable projects are the main reason for stagnation in the domain of theoretical physics and technical sciences in general.
Yes, thank you for this answer. And definitely in a world where profit is the highest value, not human life, not the benefits of humanity, free energy is not profitable. Yes, I would agree with that. And we can see that this unfortunately led to many losses of brilliant scientists, and we as a humanity even losing our freedom, because like free energy makes people free. And you know, I wanted to talk about these images that are now circulating on the internet. As you said yourself, it's harder and harder to suppress the information with when the internet is there. And there are these photographs, old photographs of 19th century cities where we can see the trams are moving, and we don't see any horses in front of them. Not like the carriage is not being pulled by a horse, nor do we see any wires on top of them as we see today with our usual trolleys and trams. And like people were saying, yes, but the electricity was supplied by the rails or by a rail like on the side, but it's rather dubious, I would say, because also this is dangerous. And on the contrary, we see from the photos from the inside of these cars, the trams, we see that there was like a small dome on the roof of these cars. And which energy do you think these trams used to move around?
Very interesting. I agree with you. But if we reject the option that it is a Photoshop, although doubtful, it still seems to me the most likely version of power supply via rails. Why? The commercial use of an over-unity device of such high power as is needed for the movements of trams could hardly be unnoticed by numerous interested parties, primarily by competing companies. So, if such a thing ever existed, it was very quickly withdrawn and hidden from the public, like all similar projects in the past. That's my opinion.
Yes, and we can see that to this date, scientists who discover new technologies that could help us make an evolutionary leap, so that they are disappearing, as you've already mentioned, actually. So why do you think that the scientific development is being hampered today in general?
Yes, as we have already said, all aspects of life today are under the control and supervision of corporations whose only measure of success is profit. And the main motive is their personal interests. Independent researchers and institutions that are interested in true science and technological and technical progress in accordance with the principles of the Creator, where the basic rule is the general accord of everything existing and complete harmony with the nature, are not in accordance with their priorities, except in the path and under the conditions that they impose to us. We are witnessing that experimental reality has surpassed the possibilities of existing theories all around us. But mainstream science artificially maintains the status quo exclusively in the interest of those who finance their work. And that is why scientific development is being limited today, by my opinion.
Yes, and as we talked about the technologies like the ones that Tesla was developing and researching like 120 years ago, do you think what do you think is our responsibility as a society and individual that we remain silent, knowing that these things existed? We have proofs, we have photographs, we have working prototypes as well, but we accept everything and we are keeping silent. So what do you think is our responsibility as a society for this kind of restraining on the scientific and technological development?
Yes, all of us as a society and as individuals have a great responsibility towards the present and the future. As a long-time researcher of Tesla's heritage and especially ancient Vedic knowledge, I am absolutely sure that the future of civilization lies in the Tesla's ether technologies, and that the path we have taken by expelling the ether from the science is wrong. The field of subphotonic phenomena for science is of hypothetical nature, but it is a field very well explained and described in ancient writings, for example, by Maharishi Kapila, who is considered to be the original proponent of the Samkhya system of Indian philosophy. I especially recommended the book Sankhya Karika of Ishvara Krishna, the earliest surviving text of the Hindu philosophy and Samkhya school of philosophy. Approaching scientific and metaphysical knowledge, science and spirituality is the right path to follow, and it is exactly the one we left 120 years ago and to which we should return if we want to move on. We have to back to Tesla ideas.
And you also write that the civilizations that preceded us, they have had a much higher technological advancement than we do today. And yet they came to self-destruction. What do you think might have been the main causes for this, and how we can avoid them?
Yes, the fact that ancient civilizations, 4 before our, we are 5th, had a much higher technological level than ours. That is quite unquestionable, as is the fact that they ended in destruction. The reason is simple: an insufficiently high level of awareness to keep up with such high technology. With a knife, one can sharpen a pencil, but he can take someone's life. According to the Upanishadic cosmogony, the planet Earth and the world we live in are so-called worlds of separation, of worlds of duality, where there is a both darkness and light. The institutions of the system should affirm the phenomena of goodness, harmony, and light, and weaken and suppress everything that leads to destruction. It was not like that in previous civilization. The selfish, self-serving interests of the primitive minority were favored, and that's why self-destruction took place. Unfortunately, we are also currently in a position to slide down the path of transhumanism, which inevitably lead to the separation of man from his spiritual essence, and therefore to the path opposite to the Creator's plan, which inevitably leads to cosmic reset. Divisions based on various racial, social, or religious criteria can only result in further confrontations. The way out is the formation of a creative society, free from the system of consumerist mindsets, which is the main goal of the international public movement ALLATRA, as well as the intention to create conditions for the development of creative potential for the benefit of whole humanity, raising the level of awareness and knowledge, the entire society, establishment of cooperation between various organizations, professional associations, cultural and academic communities. That's only way humanity can continue its evolution. And thank you a lot.
Thank you very much, Goran, for these inspiring words. And indeed, we are being divided, and this is why also, this is one of the reasons why we cannot progress. And as you rightly said, we need to unite, and we desperately need to unite the scientific potential as well to overcome also the climatic crisis that we are all facing. And how do you think we can bring scientists together to explore new possibilities and alternative directions, options for the free energy?
Very important question. And what I think is that this could be achieved by establishing independent institutions that would unite educational and theoretical research segments with experimental laboratory departments, which, with the help of appropriate workshops, could perform on-site experimental checks and verification of new theoretical insights. This would significantly shorten the process from the birth of idea or theory to its realization and or practical verification. International congresses, symposia, and similar forms of gathering of scientists would most certainly lead to new insights that could be immediately developed, theoretically and practically verified on such places, which would significantly speed up scientific practice.
Indeed. And what do you think, what opportunities could open up for our civilization if free energy became part of our daily life?
Well, we know that energy is the basis of economy production, but essentially of all aspects of life. In any case, technological progress would become even faster, which would free man from many functions that could be performed by intelligent machines, artificial intelligence in essence. However, the more significant fact is that this more advanced technology would be qualitatively different because it is based on subphotonic energy phenomenology, which is much more subtle in its structure and therefore closer to nature and to the primal matrix of existence. Therefore, all creations based on such technologies would be in harmony with the environment and support the state of eternal harmonic oscillation described in Sankhya, which is the elementary principle of supreme creator. Therefore, they are not harmful to nature or to a man and would enable a lot new technological devices and far more meaningful life, including traveling through the space, time, and even through densities, that is, worlds of different levels of existence.
Yes, there's the inspiring possibilities. But, you know, in today's, if we introduce free energy in today's world, in the world that we are living in today, this would cause quite a lot of chaos and disrupt everything that's built around the energy sources that we are forced sort of to use. And what conditions do you think do we as a society need to create for us to finally have this free energy, be able to use it?
It's a very, very hard question. Well, regarding all of my 40 years of investigating theoretical physics and Tesla's legacy, I can say that free energy is possible, but free energy available to all humanity implies the abolition of all corporations or any associations whose profits are based on the production and sale of energy from classical sources, which is currently hard to imagine. Therefore, a quantum leap in the domain of consciousness is needed as a necessary precondition for a complete reorganization of the social organization at the level of the planet and the fundamental change of established preconception, our understanding of the role and the goal of man as an individual and all higher associations from the family to the nation. Thus, a condition for obtaining free energy is not a technical by me, but a spiritual problem. Humanity simply needs to reach the appropriate level of awareness required for such high technological capabilities and basically might, which in negative context would lead civilization to destruction and represent a potential danger on a much, much wider evolutionary segment of reality. In short, mankind must become worthy of such divine mercy.
That was very nice. And our last question for today: how do you personally see the science of the future?
The science of the future is very close to us, but it will most certainly be based on Nikola Tesla's, by me, ether technologies. In support of such my claim is the fact about the recent discovery of Hungarian physicist who found a new particle in November 29 that they named X17 because it has 17 mega electron volts. This real existence of this particle is unquestionable, but it cannot be explained by existing theories based on the four fundamental forces in nature known to science: electromagnetic, weak, strong, and gravitational. And because of this, the latest cosmological theory called quintessence was called to help. Quintessence is the fifth essence, that is the fifth element that we know is the ether. Another strong argument for this opinion also is Aharon Bohm. I will repeat for public: Aharon Bohm experiment performed in numerous scientific laboratories around the world, which prove that the electromagnetic potential exists and affects the charged particle in the part of the space in which the magnetic and electric fields are equal to zero. This is really difficult to accept for anyone who deals with electrical engineering or physics, from amateurs to top physicists. But it is still a scientific experimental reality and the true essence of Tesla's technologies. In other words, the experimental reality of modern physics points to the fact that electric potential, which is a scalar quantity, is a more fundamental level of reality than the vector electric field that appears in Heaviside simplified version of Maxwell equation. It is an indisputable fact written in Tesla's Colorado Springs diary on June 5th, we mentioned, to abandon the classic version of the induction-based transformer, which he patented in 1891, and start developing the magnifying version in which he favors electromotive force, which is pure potential, and which modern science 120 years later defines as the most fundamental phenomenon of reality. So, return to the concept of ether and reaffirmation of the original theory of James Clerk Maxwell is possible, and the good way in which all of ideas and explanations of Nikola Tesla's ether technologies would return to the scientific framework. Whether it will become a part of our reality to an appropriate extent depends on us. Thank you very much for this question.
Goran, thank you very much. This was a really very nice and extensive interview, and we surely not only hope, but we are doing our best to put this information out in the world so that we get to these understandings as a society sooner than later. And I would like to ask you just your final thoughts, maybe, or a short message to the viewers who watch this interview. What would you like to tell them?
We have to learn and acquire a knowledge of official science, but we have to read the ancient documents, Vedic, because I'm absolutely sure that the ancients knew much, much more than our modern science. I read the book Sankhya Karika with so much details, so much numbers about knowledge of ancients, and Ishvara Krishna showed that they knew everything. Before 33,000 years, they knew the mass of neutrino, the mass of electron, of proton, mass of, I don't know, galaxy, of sun, of universe, dimensions of universe. They knew everything. They knew every constant. They calculated velocity of the light. Very simple. They wrote that the velocity of light should be 10 power 1 divided by phi minus 0.5. 5 is golden mean. So from golden mean, they calculated velocity of light before 33,000 years, which modern science measured before few years. So this knowledge is really, really great and can help us to better understand modern knowledge. And for me, uniting modern knowledge and science with spirituality and the knowledge of the ancients is ultimate for going on. And I recommend to read the Vedic documents.
Thank you very much. As it said, the new is just the very well forgotten old.
Yes.
And, I would just like to thank you so much for this inspiring interview. I'm sure that our viewers, after watching this, will start actively following the old manuscripts and trying to dig deeper into this topic, because this is really a future for us. And I'm so thankful for you, Goran, for finding time for this brilliant interview with so many insights and so many information. And I'm just so really thankful. And I would like to thank very much also Alexei and all the viewers for watching us. And we might see each other in some next episodes of our cooperation, of our interviews. So thank you very much, and all the best.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.